Affordance is the quality or property of an object that defines its possible uses or makes clear how it can or should be used. Interfaces exist for people to be able to use them and to do things with them. Use and do are both action verbs, and affordances give clear indication that action is possible. And there's lots of different ways inside of an interface or a website or a mobile app that affordance comes into play, whether it's scrolling, swiping, tapping, editing, enlarging, zooming, all kinds of different ways that affordance comes into play. So it's just highly important that you're constantly thinking of affordance, and you're looking at your screens that you design and you're thinking, okay, is a user going to know that they can do something on the screen? What do I want them to do, and what is it easy for them to be able to see that they can do? So let's take a look at some affordance examples. All right, one of the most basic affordance examples in the history of web design are cursors. We all have this little mouse cursor that is a little pointer, and these are all the different CSS properties that you can turn a cursor into by default. So you can see if something's not allowed, there's a little ban icon. If you can resize something from the top, you have this north-south resize. If you can resize something left and right, you've got your crosshair that allows you to, if I hit Command-Shift-4, I've got my crosshairs. And all of these little things are affordances. Now it's super simple, but also just very subtle. It gives me, okay, this is gonna copy something. This is how I can move something around. Please wait while we do something. All of these little indicators are just signaling to the user that something's happening or something can happen based on where you place your mouse. So as small of an example of this is a very nuanced and detailed look at what happens with a mouse cursor when it's just placed over certain things. Another example is this is a little prototype that I made for the Envision Studio course. So if you look here, I've got a little tiny thing happening when you hover the input field. So I'm hovering the input field. It's a small, subtle affordance that's saying, hey, you can click into this thing. On a normal input field, your cursor would actually change as well. So that would be even more of an affordance. So now there's another affordance. There's a blinking cursor. I think we probably take that for granted, but nearly everyone that uses a computer realizes that a blinking cursor means that you can type into the password field. Another affordance here is the back button. I can go back if I want to. I can click this eyeball if I want to show the password. So I'm going to click this just to show what happens when you go to the next. I've also got the password strength indicator. These are kind of grayed out, and this one is coming in checked, and I've got a strike through. These are all small affordances that let me know action is being taken, that action can happen, and that action is being taken. So the next time I go, one uppercase letter is going to get striked out, one special character, minimum of 8 characters, and then I can also click the eyeball icon to see what the password is. And there's a new affordance. There's like, no, I don't want to see the password. So there's a line through the icon. And you'll notice that once we went all the way through, that the next button ended up getting, if you pay attention to the top right, once you've hit all of those specific characters, the next button lights up, which is another affordance. So there's a lot of tiny little details that you need to think about while you're designing a form or an interactive screen of any type. What are the little affordances that are going to make it explicitly clear of what is happening? And there's really no easy way around it. You have to design every little detail for every little affordance, whether it's a hover state or something is checked or something highlights. And a lot of times you might need to use a little bit of animation to smooth those affordances out. All right, moving on to another example. I just want to pull up this profile design for this Zipper app. I'm looking at the profile screen, and I can see an edit button. All of these colors are indicating that I can take certain action here. I can edit this, or if I've saved the profile, I've made an edit and saved it, then it's going to say, oh, your profile was saved. This might pop up. So all of these are just more affordances. You're constantly thinking about action item text, but it's important. Even now that I'm looking back on this screen, I designed this a couple years ago, actually. And now I'm wondering, why is this email yellow? Maybe, I can't remember. Maybe it's because, you can actually send an email to the people on your team by tapping that. And maybe that was the affordance that I wanted to, put forth. But also, does it make sense that you can email yourself on the profile screen? That's something that I might think about when I'm designing the screen. Does that actually need to be yellow and highlighted as an action item on this particular screen? And then again, I'm not sure. Same thing with these toggle switches. There's an affordance that this is turned on, and there's an affordance that this is turned off. And it's mirroring the example that iOS uses as their toggles, but it's just another way to show something on or off, highlighted or dimmed. Another example of affordance here is this roadie.com website. This was a long time ago, and sadly the website no longer looks like this. On the main home screen, we wanted people to know that there was an iOS app and there was an Android app. And so in a non-interface design kind of way, even just simply telling someone that something exists is a way of giving them affordance to know that, okay, well, if there's two apps, then I can use it on iOS or Android. That's in its own way an affordance. So right here, I could have gone a little bit wider like this, and I could have moved this badge. See if I can grab this thing. If I move the badge up, and I can move some of this stuff up, and I could have had a nice, get that out of there. Could have had like something like this. Maybe the navigation didn't show up till later. But if I had something that looked like this, there's not really any affordance that you can scroll down, except maybe the fact that these screens are cut off. So very intentionally, I wanted this maximum height to be set at like 90%. And I wanted this badge to be cut off a little bit when you first landed, because that just gives you an affordance that you can scroll through the web page. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a big, nicely designed hero image, and it just looks like a framed poster. And I've hit websites like that, and I didn't even know that I could scroll. Now, you can make an argument that most people are going to scroll when they get to a website, but if it looks like a framed image, I don't have nothing's telling me to scroll. So I'm not going to scroll usually if I can't see that there's more content down below. It's the same exact thing with the weather app. I can see that there's little clouds cut off to the right, and I can swipe through them to see, multiple times during the day. Or on the home screen, I've swiped up enough to know that I can swipe up to open my phone. But in case you forgot, there's a little animation at the bottom that says swipe up to open. And then even in the Photos app, if you tap a photo, I can swipe down to go, and that's not really a great affordance, but I can also tap the top left to go back as well. So there's two different ways that I can dismiss a photo. One is more of a hidden thing that there's really not an affordance for, other than maybe if you accidentally tug down on the photo. But sometimes if you have a cool hidden gesture, you also need to keep your strong affordance in there, like the back arrow that you can tap to go down. And as the web and mobile apps progress, sometimes you don't always need an arrow that indicates action. Sometimes the content itself can be designed in an interactive enough layout to where you don't need all these little static affordances, because a lot of the interface just kind of becomes a little bit more fluid and interactive. So it really depends on what you're designing and how much affordance you need to actually design. But if your product is not usable, then it's not usable. And if no one knows that you can go back or swipe down to dismiss and there's no button, then you're gonna have people that have problems doing those simple actions because there's no affordance designed for it. Here's another example from the Roadie app. And just to refresh your memory, Roadie was an app that allowed someone who was already going to drive from point A to point B to check out the app and kind of deliver someone's package, kind of like Uber for delivering packages. So in this case, we're delivering this beloved squirrel painting, and this is Miranda's painting. And I, as the driver, am looking at this and I'm saying, okay, I've got the package. I'm going to tap this button when I'm on my way. And then there's kind of this indicator, this affordance of this line coming down. And it's saying, okay, you're going to meet Roy at the following pickup location. Here's the location, lines coming down. There's the map. And eventually I'm going to confirm the pickup. I'm going to be at the delivery location and then confirm delivery. And so there's kind of this progression, this downward progression of picking things up, taking a picture, and as a progress indicator, it's just showing you like what happens. So there's this entire world of slowly and methodically and carefully planning out what makes sense for each screen, and it's really just a matter of going very slow and making sure that each step is clear and maintains that level of affordance, letting everyone know what's going on, what can be done and what has been done, and showing those pieces of information along the way. All right, last example here is the Cinesampler app again. There's several affordances kind of going on here. One, you can drag these tracks into different spaces. So if I wanted this instrument here to go into slot number 5, then this one would actually slide up and this one would pop into place. And so the affordance here is as you hover these things, you can't tell that easily, but the default state is kind of a darker gray. And then as you hover each one of these, they light up kind of a lighter color. And then once you grab it, we're bringing in this like grab icon, changing the cursor. And then we also add a shadow to the entire thing. So there's a big affordance to let people know this is now, pulled out of place and can be dragged around, whatever the proper past tense of that is. And then also there's another affordance here that there can be up to 16 channels here, but I've intentionally cut the vertical height right in the middle of one to show that there's more down below that fold there. Because if this thing was, if all of these pieces were cut off completely, it might just look like there are only 7 there and you can't scroll down. So that's a small affordance. And also showing that if you hover your cursor right over this thing, you can actually raise and lower that tray and kind of make it your own. And you can see this even in little finder windows. If you hover a sidebar, you're going to get a cursor here that lets you know that you can slide this left and right. Okay, so affordance homework. I'm going to give you a super quick crash course on Figma animation. If you haven't used it yet, I'm going to show you some quick tips on this, but overall, I want you to design a 3-page onboarding screen. Say it's like the beginning of an app and you just downloaded it and it's like, hey, you can do this, swipe over, you can do this, and there's 3 steps and then you finish. Okay, so to do that, what I'm gonna get you to do is create a new frame. I'm gonna choose an iPhone 11. Let's just call this screen 1. I'm gonna duplicate it twice. So I've got screen 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to design a very, very crude version of this just to give you an idea of what's going to happen. You probably already know, but I'm going to show you anyway. Okay, so I've got 3 buttons here, or 3 dots. This is going to indicate that you're on step 1 of 3. And then I'm going to if you copy this from this artboard and then you choose this artboard and you hit Command V, that's going to paste it in place on the new artboard. And then what I'm going to do is say, okay, now this one I want to be that color. And then I want the third one to be that color. Okay, so now I've got these little indicators. I'm going to create a super simple like little grid. I'm really just kind of making something up here. So let's see, that'll go there. And let's do one more. So this is just kind of like a fake image or illustration or whatever you want to call it. Make this a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll move that down, paste that, 2 and 3. Paste that there, paste that there. Okay, so you can see if I want to, I'm just gonna choose the frame and go up here to prototype, and then interaction will be on tap. And then I want that to go there. So the interaction here will be going there on tap. And what I'm going to do is make sure that these are on Smart Animate. Go back here and change this. Okay, Smart Animate. That's on Smart Animate. And then I'll have this one go back to number 1 and leave that on Smart Animate. And now I'm going to hit Command, is it Command Return? Or maybe there's not a command for it. I'm going to hit this play button here. And let's see what happens. Tap. Okay, somehow our animation is not working. All right, let's go back. Oh, I have it set to on drag. Somehow I made a mistake. On tap. That should be on tap. That should be on tap. Okay, now that should work. All right, so now I tap, tap, tap. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you can see the dot. You know, the dot is the affordance to let me know. The dot and the number actually is the affordance that lets me know what's happening. Now, if I want to get fancier, I could say, okay, what if I brought in the 2 right here and I brought in the 1 here, and then maybe this was 0% opacity and this is 0% opacity. Now you're going to see the 1, so this artboard is going to transition to that one, and you'll see the 2 kind of scroll over, and the 1's going to fade out. See what it looks like. There we go. You can see our 1 and our 2 are sliding over. And we could do the same thing with the 3. Put the 3 there and the 2 there. And then we'll make both of these 0. And if we wanted to, we could make, you know, something happen inside of here as well. I don't know how that's going to work, but, you know, just to give you an idea of ways you can keep playing with this. One, 2, 3. So it's kind of a neat little animation trick here with the Smart Animate boards inside of Figma. So what I want you to do is create something similar to this, but instead of giving it, I mean, you could do a wireframe if you wanted to, but maybe you know, come up with a fake app name, or if you're having trouble, you can actually, oh, you know what you should do? So if you wanted to, you could go to this website, humans.com with 3 A's by Pablo Stanley. You could grab some of these illustrations and you could possibly use these inside of your intro animations. You don't have to use these, but it could be kind of a fun way to just add a little bit more to your design. You know, play with the colors. And you can see that the one thing that I did not do, I did not really add much affordance to these screens. You know, if you go and you play this prototype, there is not really anything other than the circles that indicate, oh, I can tap this or I can swipe this. So that might be enough. You know, it might be enough to have only the circles, but you might also want to have a next button or an arrow, or maybe the 2 is showing a little bit on the next side, and that kind of indicates that there's a little bit more. So play around with some different ways to show affordance on this particular screen. And you come up with just 3, and if you do it in Figma, post a link to the prototype or post your designs. Either way, it's up to you. So this should be a fun little example. And remember, just affordance. What can I do? What can be done? And what has been done? You know, you're gonna need to think about this every time you design a screen, every time you tackle a project or a little bit of a problem. Affordance needs to be, you know, one of the main things that you're thinking about at all times. So good luck with the project, and I can't wait to see what you post.